Okay, so I just posted my video, cleared up my memory. I got like 30 hours of backlog that I either have to erase or post, or if my phone dies or gets lost or stolen, will be lost forever. But anyway, so I gotta make these hour vids, you know. I'll look forward to the day, like maybe someday I will make that 10-hour video. Oh, epic. Probably be about 7 hours worth of shit, but that 3 hours worth of good stuff. But yeah, I was talking about the Lincoln movie, so please watch my previous post before this one, maybe my previous two. I don't have the bandwidth to try to make this post alone relevant. But it might be entertaining anyway. Who knows? I know I listen to things that I don't understand all the time. But if I'm tuned in to the vibe of the speaker, I get something anyway. Sometimes I'll listen to 4 hours of something to get like 3 words that are like a key. So who knows? I wouldn't suggest you listen anyway, but my prayer would be that if you're listening anyway, I hope through me a key comes to you. That would be awesome. Keys are found in. Sometimes keys are found in places expected, but sometimes in the most unexpected places. And sometimes only hidden by our perspective. What I was trying to get to last time with the whole Abe Lincoln thing and his wife and the movie about them, which I think is a pretty damn good account of the accounts of their time, their relationship, and what was happening. And because of, even though in my own life I feel this certain instability, I have this certain amount of stability in what my rights are. And not, well, and maybe some of that is white privilege, but a lot of it has to do with like the political philosophy that has developed over the last several hundred years in the United States. And if I were a white man in Ireland, and I have family that goes back to Ireland, if I were a white man in Ireland, how secure would I feel? Depending on which side of the Christian divide I was on, right? Etc. So, color does not make us safe. Prejudice and the lie finds a way. It will always find the easiest way. The truth is the hard path. The truth is the hard path. Because they say the way is of least resistance. Depends what we mean by resistance. In a way, that's true. In a way, the way they talk about the way is true. But in a way, that rhetoric can be used to support the lie. Anyway, the enemy will use any difference to divide. And in places where there is no division of color, the enemy will find other means. We don't need to dig far into history or into esoterica to figure that out. We can watch the CNN reports of my own lifetime and just see people fucking butchering each other. Right? Still today. Safe as I am. In my hovel. Is that the right word? In this room, which no one, virtually no one, growing up in a modern society would aspire to, yet which exceeds the riches of most people ever born. And those of us with exposure to media don't realize that. And I don't realize that viscerally. I'm trying to approach it. It sucks. And is necessary, at least up to a degree, but only up to the degree that I can make a difference. If I'm willing to go all the way down, I can make the most difference. And that brings me back to like Abraham Lincoln. Again, please reference my last video because, yeah, it's the same day. So I'm talking about the same story that I was talking about. Well, it was a couple hours ago, but an hour and a few minutes ago in the chronology of these videos, but because it took about an hour to post that last video. But anyway, yeah, the whole thing with Mary Todd Lincoln and Abraham Lincoln is like essentially that contrast between the brutality of nature of the viciousness of interacting with other humans and the viciousness of interacting with the earth and animals, even if we're being compassionate upon them. That viciousness. Decay, mold, dirt, dust. What's the right word? Contraposed? It's not the right word. Abutted. Entwined with the refinery of manufacturing, of production. With the refinery of philosophy and thought. And what I was saying when the last video closed about Lincoln's dirty sense of humor, his earthy metaphors and similes. And yeah, I got this from the biography, so this isn't my idea, though I'm expounding upon it and maybe getting it a little bit wrong. But like, and I can relate to it because of the people in my family I've known in my own life. The full bore humanity of people who love each other. The full bore humanity of people who love each other with God in betwixt. That full bore humanity without God in betwixt is the butchery, the brutality, the murderousness, and so on. The violence. But that full bore humanity with God in the midst, with love. Historically speaking, so far as we know in the nature, so far as we know in the history of the world, and I said it last time, and I don't mean this any one way or another, but it's worth considering what Abraham Lincoln did. And like it or not, he was the top of a pyramid. He wasn't alone. Certainly wasn't alone. But the suffering upon suffering upon suffering upon suffering that he had to endure, and the strength of his shoulders, and luckily he was a big man, which is metaphorically profound. Though that in no way is meant to discount the strength of the little man. Concrete nails. They're short, stubby, and they hold. And how that relates back to Abraham of the Old Testament. I don't think I'm going to touch on that right now, because I just did. But that interactive whirlwind dysfunction between Abe Lincoln and his wife, and the strife between them and their children, the loss, the sacrifice for the greater good, and not just in some like fuzzy metaphorical way, but like that family was where the rubber met the road, were essentially the way it could be thought of. And even if you're against like any type of religious metaphor, Consider. This family, this small set of people, and this husband and wife, and Abraham, and a Mary, who Abraham called mother, killed a bad idea. Killed a host of bad ideas that have been tumbling in slow motion over time. We all hope to witness that day when the last domino falls. And many of us, and I hope to include myself among them, are willing to not see it if that's what it takes that the last domino falls. And yeah, I think a big lesson about the movie Lincoln. So I'd say watch the movie Lincoln, rent it, buy it, steal it, borrow it from a friend, whatever. Is that it shows clearly how the things that people have said and written in history sometimes parsing words is the only way to get things done. Why? If you were to go out in the world and be the king, or be the pauper revolting against the king, either one of you very quickly, if you simply spoke the truth, would so enrage the largeness of the lie that you would be executed. That's what Christ did, right? But he still had a timeline. He still had a plan. He still said don't say. And then he said say. Because with whatever capacity, he could see what was going on and how it would progress. And what we need to do is look at the ways those who have been touched by the divine light of reason. People who have been touched with the divine light of reason don't always say it exactly as it is, because in the time that they're in, they have to say things that make a difference. So in that way, they are rhetoricians. Rhetoricians? They use rhetoric. But they're not simply rhetoricians. They're not sophists. Or, if we give the negative connotation that sophism is normally given, they're not just that. Right? Rhetoric without like ethics, morality, or the flat out fucking truth is just salesmanship. But if you truly have the truth and don't know how to speak about it, what good can you do for others, right? And the truth without others is less. And the greatest thing the truth wants is more truth. There's always a boundary. I am. Am I? Every time every am I answers that question for real, the I am grows. And the I am wants to be as big as possible. And essentially, if you take my last video into account as to what I said about Abraham, thinking about him in a way that's not thought about, and you couple that with Abraham Lincoln, around the world it's known the Civil War in America was an explosion. And I know America is blamed for a lot of that. I have more to say about that. It's an ugly, awful subject to the truth. But we wouldn't have even have been having this discussion, the luxury of this discussion, without what Abe Lincoln did, and more importantly, what he symbolized. Because he wasn't just the head of the spear of governments or of America or whatever people put him at the tip of. All that official shit he was super all of that official shit. The Underground Railroad goes back thousands of years. And I guarantee you, this is where I'm going to place it. Now, I've only made it a couple sentences in, and I got it. So I dare you, as well I dare myself. Immerse yourself in Euclid's Elements. The whole big old bad fucking, well, it's 13 elements, I don't know how many books, but it's a big old bastard. Especially with translations, footnotes. But you read Euclid's Elements and do as Abraham Lincoln did. And I guarantee you will begin to see the truths of the world that are not spoken of yet. Laid in the lines. I guarantee it. Because once you force your mind to think in those lines, in those circles, this facility for the truth develops. It gets the engine started. And there is a truth that the truth seekers have collapsed upon, that was first collapsed upon long ago, and has just been reinforced. I am. Am I? I am. Am I? I am. Am I? I am. Am I? I am. And that's the unspoken movement we don't know of. That many have come to. There's more of them than we think. I'm not one of them. But I'm able to say this now because of what they built then. Up to this day, and are still building today, so that we can speak this to each other. Because the war continues. And it sounds fuzzy, but it's not. Free the people. Free the primates. Free the vertebrates. Forgive people. Including ourselves. I'm not there, so in a sense I'm not, like, worthy to lead a prayer, but I know it's true and I know there's no other way. Best wishes. Godspeed. I'm sorry for how presumptuous I am. We need to the war we're fighting started a long time ago. And it's not over. in the war of peace fought in the spirit of the ferocity, the absolute ferocity of love. To me, it's still unfathomable, but it's the only option. The ferocity of love and the seemingly insurmountable mountain of forgiveness. Not turning our backs to atrocity. Not at all. Destroying the idea, not the person. Love not as a mandate, but as our true inheritance. If hell is the accumulated error of free will, we can hope for a day when free will collectively chooses the right thing, the truth, becomes more reasonable, more rational. And a lot of people associate those words with the Mailu of the day, but over the last 10, 20,000 years, one of the most important things, consistently, throughout the study of reason, as geometry and number, associated with music, poetry, etc. The conclusion is, don't eat animals, people, muscle, flesh. Don't do it. Don't do it. It makes the creation worse. So I guess that's why I'm saying, if nothing else, and I know there have been all this stuff about new geometries in Poincaré and all that shit, but has there? And the parallel postulate, fifth postulate, whatever, I'm sure that's probably kind of misunderstood. Not excluding the advancements or anything, or the genius of Poincaré or anything. I'm not trying to discount that. I'm just saying that Euclid. Read a few books of Euclid and just not just read, demonstrate, describe, discern. It forces the mind to be more rational, and then even the subconscious becomes more rational. And you'll just start knowing shit you never knew before. But my warning is, much of it will be ugly. Just like Abraham's truth was fucking ugly of the Old Testament. and Abraham. Of the American Civil War. His truth was fucking ugly. Ugly as shit. And people called him ugly. He was ugly. People called him ugly. Lived in an ugly time, in an ugly country. Had to do ugly things. Loved his wife, who was mean as shit to him. But he loved her. He loved her because he saw the truth in her and the beauty in her. And he accepted her faults, man. And he accepted the nation's faults. He accepted them and forgave them, but fixed them. Wasn't perfect, you know. But he did what hadn't been done before. And imagine how the world could have backslided. Because people were all worried about like the this and the that, about the youth of the day, whatever, these days, right? But had we let slavery go on the way it had, we could be back in the Abrahamic age of child sacrifice, and the Phoenician child sacrifice, the sacrifices of the Americas, etc., etc. So I'm not saying he was perfect. He was put in a very bad place. What would you do? Well, I do this, I do that. Human, ugly, dirty. Fighting for the good. A war that's still happening. I need that story. I need it in my ugly life. With my little Grinch heart. And I want my little Grinch heart to grow 3 times bigger. But if it can't happen without everybody, I'm just not interested. Having that said, it's not completely genuine because I still look down upon people. Haters, right? Even though I'm a hater in my own way. So I hope I become better at forgiveness. I pray I become better at forgiveness with a light heart. And find that light in others. Find it, protect it, kindle it, nurture it. within myself and others. It seems as though we can all do a lot more if we learn how to nurture each other by the example of those who have nurtured us. And sometimes that nurturing is very ugly because of the ugliness of the place where that nurturing occurs. But with greater wisdom, greater discernment, we are able to see it better and relay it better. And that's the hope. And not just for some like vain, incomplete notion of truth or worship or any of that, but